And we're back. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup. It's been a while, the place where we unpack what's been going on in the yoga and wellness world and what we've been coaching our clients through. I am Bridget, and I'm here with my fellow coaches, Carol, Terry, and Josh. And I can't speak for everybody, but I am stoked to be back on the roundup. It's one of my favorite times of the week. So um, let's kick it. Who wants to start us off? Talking about January. Josh, jump in. Tell us what's up.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Oh man, January is always fun because obviously, you usually get an influx of people coming into your business if you're in boutique fitness wellness. Interestingly, it seems to be that our clients who are also running therapy services, stuff like that, that also has a bump, which makes sense. Like New Year's, sort of like reestablish yourself kind of stuff. Um, there are a few businesses that we are seeing the reverse, specifically like physical therapy and those sorts of things. Actually, post Christmas, there's like a little bit of a drop that's happening, which is interesting. But the reason I say that is I think most of small business ebbs and flows with the market and with the industry. And there are things that are just completely out of your control that you've got to accept. That's just business. And sometimes owners give away their power around this stuff way too easily. We just assume, like, oh, it's January, I'll be busy, so I'm just gonna sit back and let the money come to me. Or surprise, it's not busy because it's January, February, and people are on a budget and they don't want to pay for their physical therapy out of network right now. I guess it's just slow season and like just accepting that. And in both cases, it doesn't quite feel right to me. So the suggestion that I would put on the table at this point is if at any point you're thinking, this is just what's happening because it's the season, and I'm going to sit back and do nothing as a result of it, that's it's a sign of intelligence because that's a type of procrastination that that puts you in that beta region paradox. So it's like it's not bad enough that you got to do something, but it's not really good either. You're kind of just hoping that your business does something. So I guess the proposition is just, are you in that state? Like psychologically, are you just sort of right accepting what's happening and not strategically doing anything right now? Good, Terry.
I 100% agree. And I think it starts with shifting your mindset. Because I know when I had my business, it was always like, oh, summertime is slow. Summertime is slow. People don't want to do hot yoga in the summertime, blah, 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 blah. And once I started to shift my mindset, and we also say you market when you're busy so you don't get slow, right? So if your business is one of those that tends to you feel drop off in the summertime, what are you doing Q1, Q2 to make sure that that doesn't happen? And then the other thing is what I realized when I shifted my mindset that just because there was less attendance did not mean less revenue. And I think that's often the case, people, particularly if you have like MRR, monthly recurring revenue coming in, if you have some type of membership in your business, then if you're establishing that value, particularly in like a class-based business, it's like, well, I'm not going to be here as much, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep my membership active. I'm not going to pause it or anything like that. And it was amazing once I made that shift because in 2018 and 2019, the last 2 full years that I owned my studio, my business is my and I was in a hot studio in New England, so this is summertime. My June, July, and August were better revenue than January, February, March. And everybody thinks, oh, January and the first Q1 in a class-based, wellness fitness business, be it yoga, Pilates, kickball, everybody thinks New Year's resolution. Yes, we were super duper busy for sure. Attendance was through the roof. However, revenue was higher in the summertime because of all the things that we did leading up to the summer. Bridget.
Yeah, we have that. I have some often in the past few years, my best months have been July for some reason. Just my revenue has been the highest it has been all year. What I was going to say is two things were coming to mind for me as we're talking about this. One is I really try anytime I have the desire, because it's so tempting to blame an outside force. Like lately, you know, just to say the elephant in the room for a lot of, I am a yoga studio owner, so I'm speaking about yoga specifically right now, but you know, it rhymes with Pilates, you know. That is the elephant in the room is that everybody wants to do Pilates and nobody wants to do yoga, which is not true. And that is a tempting thing to fall into. And that's just one example of a million you could give over the course of a long time as a small business owner in any field. And what I try and do is like, can I think of any yoga studios that are absolutely thriving right now? And the answer is yes. Of course I can. We coach them. Like of course yoga studios are thriving right now. And if there is any other yoga studio that's thriving right now, then it's a me problem. Like I have to then it's possible. It's this concept of having expanders. If you just sit around and you think about, poor me, and no shade, I sometimes think about poor me, and but it's so what to get yourself out of that moment, you need expanders. Look around, look at businesses like yours. Specifically, think of the problems that you think you have, like oh, I don't have good enough parking, or people don't like hot yoga, during this time of year, whatever it is. And then find places that are specifically like that are doing well. Instead of focusing on shit that isn't going well, focus on those. Those are now your expanders. And it really helps me with moments like that when I'm really tempted to blame outside forces. I'll skip my other point and just stop there.
Oh, we got to start the new year off with a hashtag Terry's dad. Wouldn't be, right? We got to start the hashtag Terry's dad. If there's a problem in your business, look in the mirror.
100%.
Yeah. Radical responsibility. I think radical responsibility and hashtag Terry's dad, look in the mirror. It's just, it goes back to this real simple concept, which is just you got to take responsibility for the things that you can. And then part of the responsibility is taking responsibility for your emotional state for the things that you can't control. So in both cases, you still have to take responsibility for yourself. There are things that you can't control. What are you going to do? And fault, there was a big post that we did a couple months back or whatever. Fault versus responsibility. It's not the same thing. You can be responsible for something and have a scenario play out that's not your fault. It doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. So,
A great example of that is COVID,
right.
right?
Yeah,
I
whose
mean,
fault? Whose fault is
it
that?
was,
Who cares?
it's absolutely not your fault that COVID happened, depending on where you were in the country, in the United States or the world. You maybe had to have shut down for months at a time or week, whatever it is. And I think a lot of it, and I've said this before, I think a lot of businesses use that as an excuse because they were going out of business before COVID. They just hadn't admitted it yet. And they used it
Yeah.
as, oh, COVID, oh, it's because of COVID I lost my business. Well, they use COVID as the excuse to shut their business down. That's just my belief there.
No, there
Yeah.
were some that I think fall into the category. Let me be clear. I want to add just to what Terry's saying, as we've talked about this off camera too, that like there's a difference between it was an opportune moment to decide to close the doors, and this is an excuse for me to run away from my problems. Because there
Yeah.
is the category of like, there were a group of businesses that are like, you know what? I'm good. I made my money. There's no
They get,
sale in sight. Like, I'm done. That was a small group, but it was probably about 8% had an immediate shut. That was the group that like they were on the way out.
yeah.
They just 2009, 18, 19 was just really strong business. And so they probably survived the last few years based up purely off of the positive market swing, which goes back to our first point, which is like there's an ebb and flow. If you're only riding it, that's precarious. Yeah, rather than actively doing something.
Well, I also think choosing to shut down because you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to put the juice in that I need to keep this business going during COVID. Like you said, I've done my thing. I exited. That's a strategic decision someone made as instead of a panicked. I think that the I'm referring more. I think I'm thinking it, framing it more now as it's that panic. Oh my God, what I can't do this. It's like not doing the hard work because we certainly saw many businesses do well, survive and thrive out the other side. So I think it just goes back to making that decision in the mindset is this is something that's pretty shitty. I have no control over it. What am I going to do to keep my business going?
Mm. There's a call that I had just the other day with a client that I worked with probably at first point 6 years ago, and then for a couple of years. Then we've been in contact. They've been in and out of our group a little bit, etc. Long story short, they since took on some debt coming out of COVID, and as many people did. And the market that they're in is one of the very few markets that legitimately has like a tourist and half culture turnover situation. And it's impacted right now because people aren't doing that in the same way. And then on top of it, and this is the hard one, and I won't name any names, but like they went and did a consulting program and paid a lot of money. They told them, show me the bill. And it was bad. They got bad advice. It screwed them up. They lost members and like they're in debt from that now. So now they're coming back around to us being like, hey, we were all up when we were together. Like, can we talk or whatever? Long story short, what I was applauding the owner around was that I'm like, whether you work with us or not at this specific point, the fact that you have seen this whole thing and now have realized where you can take responsibility and you're going to do something about it, rather than all of these major things that happen are things that they would have every reason to just sit back and complain about. And like you should vent to your person or whatever too. There's space for that. But they were a good example, I thought, of just someone who's like, yeah, this all sucks, and there's a lot of fault outside of whatever. And what am I going to do about it? Like I have to just step up, basically. So, how do you step up in January, Carol?
Well, during this whole discussion, what's going through my mind is a lot of business owners, I think, are reactionary instead of planning. And
Mm,
so get into a space of whether this is your high time or the low time or whatever time, like what is your plan? And we did a lot of this late last year, well, 2 months ago, with a lot of the business owners about just looking at 2026 with a very clear vision of what are our goals. And so moving in that direction now, I think is where a lot of my clients are. Like we've set the goals, we've set the targets. Now we know exactly what we need to do right now to start moving in that direction. I think that's, part of this conversation too, is being very clear on like the planning part of it and getting
mhm.
like kind of putting blinders on in a way, because there are so many things that can come up and you could blame for whatever situation you're in right now, but that doesn't matter. You're still take the reins, get going, and put the blinders on and just do it, I guess. That's what I'd say.
Something Josh, I think, said on the roundup a few, maybe like a month, maybe 2 months ago. Maybe you guys had talked about it at the summit. I feel like it was right when you guys came back. Has really been sticking with me, and I've been talking to my clients a lot about it, that what you're doing in your business now, you see it 3 months later, or like what you're seeing in your business now is a result of what's been happening for the last 3 months. And I think that's so important to what Carol's speaking to, because sometimes when we do, especially like beginning of the year, we're all like, okay, this year's going to be different and we're just going to like hit the ground running and we're going to get so into it. And then you don't get the immediate results you want, or January isn't the boon that you thought it was going to be. And then you lose steam and you feel sad and you like give up or you pivot to a new thing or whatever. And what I think Carol is speaking to is just that, like, stay focused. Do not expect immediate results from your efforts, but stay consistent and focused. And then, check in 3 months later. Look back. What was I doing 3 months ago? What am I doing now that's going to affect me 3 months from now? And that goes also to Terry's point about preparing for those times in your business that are slower. It's like, okay, if you do have a slow June or January or July or August or whatever, what are you doing in March and April, which are coming up? So look into it. But yeah, that
Word
three
of
months from now, yeah, really, really hit me.
word of the week, boon. I like that one. That's a good one. The boon. If you watched like the original Mahabharat series, the all 96 episodes or whatever the hell it is, they say that word all the time. And at first I was like, what are they talking about? Because the translation's a bit weird. Anyways, boon. I agree, Carol, too. I think yeah, put the blinders on. We talk at the summit about how there are three categories of work that you're going to have to do in your business. Like it's mandatory. You'll have maintenance category stuff. That's just keep the engine running sort of thing. You're going to have reactionary stuff. That's just real. Something's going to happen. You didn't plan for it, or it's an opportunity or whatever, and you're going to be reactive to it. And then you're going to have strategy, like your actual planning strategy for the business. And the problem is a lot of owners get stuck in maintenance and reaction only, not in the planning part. Like they're not building, is the other way we say it at the summit. And that's where it's difficult because, to your point, Bridget, then like 3 years goes by and you're like, we're doing okay, but objectively, like not a lot has changed. And like, why is that? I wish we would grow more. And it's like, well, were you building anything during that time? And if you're being really kind of gut punch true about it, it's because you might have just been, it's not that you weren't busy doing shit. Like you were, I'm sure. You might be busier than ever, but that's not the same thing. It's like where you're spending your time. Anyways, from that perspective, I would just add to Carol what Carol's saying, that like, what are you building right now? And in 3 to 6 months, what do you want it to look like? Right now, you're building your membership base up in a lot of cases if you're busy, and or if you're in a little bit of a slower season, because that's the type of business that you have, you're building up momentum. In either case, it's like there's an action of building right now. And when you're doing that, one of the things we talk about a lot at the summit too, but just in general, is like, and this is a hard thing to accept as an entrepreneur, especially if you have a brain like mine, you can really only build one thing at a time. You think you can do more, eh, not well. And so, like, getting really clear right now, what are you building? If it's membership, what does that look like practically? That's conversion, sales, get people practicing, evangelism of the brands, engagement with people. Like, that's just put those blinders on and everything else does not fucking exist. Just to do that for a lot of businesses. Now's a good moment for that.
And I would also add, because I've been doing a lot of this lately, is look at your website. I'm just astounded at how many websites. It's like if you're trying, like in a business that is relying on membership and that's sales, what is your call to action on your website?
Yeah.
I'm just astounded
Yeah.
how many, it's like book a class. Well, and then they click book, and what's the first thing they see? Or book an appointment. I'm working with a massage studio. It's book an appointment, but they have a massage membership. And so it took a little bit to get them to see the light. And they just launched the page. So I'm pretty confident. I'm real confident it's going to definitely help. But it's like just, and I've been looking at a lot of websites lately, and it just, like I said, it's just no clear call to action. Just did a website audit with a newer client yesterday. 15 different pricing options, everything that you could possibly want. Obviously they're trying to get, oh, can you, Yeah, I kid you not, they had a, a 5-pack, a 10-pack, a 15, a 20, a 25, a 50. I mean, it's just like all over the map. So sometimes it's just doing that hard look at audit at your business and what do you want this to be? And I also had a conversation I'm working with a client who's in the process of redoing their website, and we were on the call with their web designer, their web guy the other day. And he was kind of pushing like the pop-up to be that we get their information so that then we can follow up with them. Right? And that's oftentimes the case. So you go to a website, you fill out a form. And I said to him, I said, well, yes, that can work. However, you need to have a process behind that.
Yeah.
Because, and I use this now, I have to have some work done in my basement. And this is a great analogy. And I went online and I used Angie. I never used them before, but I kid you not, they like did it. I filled out the form, put in what I was looking for. They gave me, okay, here are 5 people in your area that are on our list that we recommend. Would you like us, click here to contact. I pushed the button and I kid you not, in less than a minute, I had a phone call. Within 5 minutes, I was on the call with the one company and I was getting calls from the other company. Within 5 minutes, all 5 of them had contacted me.
You're describing my nightmare right
Right.
now. Right.
And the
This, like,
problem
my
is that
actual nightmare.
if you're in like a wellness business or something like this, and you have that type of call to action, and your staff is their normal business hours, let's say 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, that's not going to cut it for your type of business. So make sure that your call to action can really be acted upon immediately.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. The
Yeah.
follow-up is true, and the speed part of it, absolutely.
So if you don't have that in place, then the call to action be buy this thing. Sign up
Yeah.
for this thing that the consumer can take action themselves. They don't have to wait for something to happen in order to take action.
You know what I think happens sometimes in a business is we misinterpret what the purpose of a website is, the example here, but this actually expands to other things. What the purpose really is and who it's for. The first yoga websites that I built, I would have been absolutely guilty of this. It was like, well, everyone's going, like the most visited page is the schedule page, the pricing page. And like we want them to watch this cool video that we made with some friends for 2 minutes that I paid a bunch of money for that really didn't say or do anything. It was just cool. I liked it. Like it was about me. I'm like, so why don't we just put all that stuff on the homepage? And that's how we built it. And you get a false positive. I could prove, because we put stuff on there to track it. People went to the homepage. People clicked on that stuff. Someone who was a long-term member was like, your website looks cool. I was like, man, we're so good at websites. We were shit. Like the conversion off it was terrible. But I guess the point being, whatever your call to action is or whatever you're trying to have happen, if you're saying book a class, book an appointment for massage therapy, whatever, the insinuation is that I can do that without paying. And so if that's true, then that might make sense. But if the next thing is now I've got to pay, the whole thing gets a little bit weird. And I would bet it's hard to really track depending on your system, but I would bet that you lose 90% of people going through that funnel. The only other comment I would add here is we've been saying this for years. It's so friggin' true right now. How the hell do you end up on a website right now in 2026? How do you get there? Like if it's not from an ad or from a direct Google search, I don't know there's no other way. That's how you get there. Or now, like you search something and AI gives you an answer and you're like, I don't know, and you check the source. That would be the third path, but it's the same idea. And then why are you even going there? Like if you're not an existing client. To me, I've been paying attention to this. The only reason I'm going is I'm confirming something that I want. Like, do you actually have this thing? Are you actually open during this time? Can I order this thing easily like this? Like I'm answering a question. 9 out of 10, that question is, what should I do next? Like, if you can help me, I want to know yes or no, and what's the next step? That's all I want. Everything else, I don't give a shit. There's some exceptions, but like, not much.
Mm. Do we want to stay on websites or can I take us in another direction?
Go for it.
Okay. So say your website is converting so good. Terry got it all tightened up and or Carol created you a whole new website and it's so so good. And so now you've got all these people coming in your doors in January. Maybe you're throwing an open house, whatever. What can we do um for what can we do as, a therapy business that's got a bunch of new people whose goals are like, get my relationship back in order, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
shit. What about our fitness studios? All these people, how do we keep them after February and into March and into the summer? What are we doing? Are we doing challenges that start right away in February to keep them? Are we doing the funnels for those people that are really specific and special for the new people? What does everyone have planned? What do our clients have planned?
This is a good question, actually. I think that not just in a reactionary way, just if you have a lot of people are running like an open house situation or whatever in January. So that's a good example where you suddenly have this influx of new students, not just because it's the new year, but because you've done something. And
Mhm.
so if suddenly you went from you're averaging 50 new people in a month to 150, one, you need a funnel in place before that. But two, it's also how people came in. And this is a consideration that we all inherently know in business, but we don't necessarily action. If I saw an ad for a free open house at your Pilates studio, I came in, I did one 30-minute session for free. You upsold me to a month for like $30 to come and check it out. And now during that month, you're going to convert me. The standard path that you would have put me through might fall a little bit short in
Yeah.
terms of what engagement I would need, because not because I'm not interested, but because like you've made it so low friction for me to come in that then I don't have the same level of buy-in or skin in the game. Now, hear me clearly. That is not to suggest to add friction up front, like you get people in your doors first, always, but rather to say, yeah, how do you convert people on a principle level? It's pretty simple. Like you need to engage them, they need to practice, and they need to see a change. They have to actually come in and use your service and see a result from that. And they need to feel comfortable and excited about being in your space and in your presence. That's it. But right now, you might add a little sugar to what you'd normally do. You can send an email, an automated text, whatever. There's lots of conversations on that. But half your people are opted out of email, half of them are opted out of text, half of them gave you some janky, weird email that doesn't work anymore, or don't check it more than once a week, anyways. If you send me a generic automated text message, if it's like an appointment reminder, I'm like, oh, great, thank you. But if it's like trying to be a person talking to me, my skepticism's higher than ever with all this AI stuff now. So I think right now there's a moment of just like real human to human interaction being super powered, which can be text, phone, or whatever. But like even just when someone, if you're in a therapy business, is a really good example. People come in, they have their session, they leave, or they get on their Zoom call with you, they have their session and they leave. And there's no outside of that conversation. That's the nature of that type of business. And I understand from a professional boundary standpoint why that's like that. But then it's like, it's a lot of effort for me to get there. And there's kind of like this missing element I think, that can be there. So engagement is just like, it's the small talk stuff. It's the having a tea. It's the, we've only got 60 minutes, but I'm going to purposefully start 5 minutes early to be able to just be like, how are you doing? Like just little baby stuff like that, I think counts for a lot.
What's coming up for me when you say that is, you know, get tight on the product that you're selling. Because all these retention measures and everything, like follow-ups, and they're helpful and useful. But if you don't have, especially for a class-based business, if there are inconsistencies in how the classes are taught, or like everyone thinks they have the greatest class ever, but really, I mean, I don't know. I just sometimes I hear, go to places and I'm like, no, this isn't it. There, if it's a good enough product, people will make time for that. If it's giving them the results they're looking for, they will set it aside and be like, this is important enough for me to go do. And so that's what's coming up for me, is maybe it's a good time to evaluate, like, are you really selling something that's impactful, that's compelling? That's a big word that we use a lot. Yeah. What do you think, Bridget?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Carol, it's reminding me of what we were talking about in the beginning, which is, if at the end of January you brought in a bunch of new people, or the end of February, and they're not still here, it's so tempting. I have heard clients say, "Oh, well, I did an open house and, those people didn't stick around after. Like they didn't, it's so tempting to be like, oh, cheap offer, they don't stick around. And I will say there is some truth to that. Of course, after our open house, we sell a cheap membership, first month of membership, and we expect like larger than average attrition to like our regular intro pipeline to membership. But if but every single one of the people that we don't retain is still a question for us. What could we have done better? And you really do have, I've said on this show many times that I I had to have this heart to heart with myself of like, what is going on with your product? Is this product something that people want? And even if you have a great product, I will say it can always be improved. The last thing I was going to say is just a small little thing, kind of a callback to something Terry mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast, is um, the teachers messaging the new students after class. I think you can really leverage that in this moment. If you do have an open house, we put a tag on everyone who came through and bought a membership at our open house. It's a bright pink tag on their account. And those are there all, we do that every year to have, so, and we tell our teachers, hey, if you see someone, they're on a membership, but you should treat them like they're on an intro, like our new client special, treat them like that, engage with them more than average, like, whatever. And the other thing this year I'm going to have them do is teachers will message every time they have a new person who they haven't seen before from our open house, one of our new members, they're gonna send that message, even if it's not that person's first class, if it's the teacher's first time meeting them. Hey, Carol, it was so fun to meet you in class today. So glad you joined our community this month. Something like that. Great Birds of Paradise or whatever. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
I love this point because it's the most accurate one, obviously. Like, if something's happening, I'm compelled to keep going. Part of this I would add to it is, tell me what we're doing. I think one of the things that gets wildly missed, it's actually surprising, is how often someone can have a real deep understanding of the product that they're offering, what it's supposed to do, its purpose, how it works, et cetera, and they never say it. And so as a customer, I don't start to understand the intention behind it. You receive benefit from a thing, but if you also are adding intention to it, it's pretty well proven that that amplifies the benefit. So whether that's a Pilates class or a yoga class, or even in massage therapy, you have to find the right spot, or just in general, if you're going through a program with DBT or CBT for therapy or whatever, it's like, if you give me a bigger understanding of what we're trying to do and how this works and why, that thoroughness part, I think that that's really a huge component of it. So part of like this, what is the product that you're offering, is really taking ownership over that and then tell people, like as you're doing it, literally tell people what the heck's happening.
Can I say one of my biggest pet peeves at the end of a yoga class is when people are like, thank you for coming. Thank you for your energy today. And so no shade on anyone that does that. But I would rather, if I were running a studio, I would have them say, you came today and you did this, that, and the other for your body. This is what's happening. What a great thing you did for yourself. Go out and, you're just what you're saying, Josh, is like, I know I felt that as a student, but if you tell me also these things, like that's just so powerful. So anyway, I'll leave that there. It drives me nuts.
And to
I,
say, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, totally. I love that one too. I was just going to say, I'm making a huge personal connection right now because I have been seeing this acupuncturist for a couple months now. And one thing that I really like her. One thing that drives me crazy though is I always leave and am Googling things or, chat GPT
Mm-hmm.
things. She isn't taught, like, I'm like, what do you think about me? Like, what is going on with my body? Why did we do this today? Why did we do that today? And she doesn't ever give me the big picture. And I think that I am particularly, I'm someone who this would really hit for. I think some other people are fine just kind of showing up and being like, yep, that felt good, move on. But there are a lot of us who like putting that bigger picture together. I want her to tell me every time she puts a needle in, whatever part of my body, explain it to me, or she gives me all these things that I have to do, like these castor oil packs or whatever that I'm doing in between times. And I find myself not doing them because she's not explaining to me why I'm doing it. And I go to her and I say, "Hey, Christina, I I'm having trouble making myself do these castor oil packs because I think one thing that would help me is if you explain to me why I am doing this because that's going to make me more motivated to do it." And we've argued, so I'll just say one last thing. She told me I had to take my supplements at certain times, but she didn't tell me why. And that wasn't on my bottle of supplements that I had. And so I just kept taking them at night. And I just told her, like, I'm not going to do it until you tell me why like a real good reason, because I am so
You
much
can't
more
make me.
motivated. You can't make me do it. Because for me, because I don't have an organized brain, I need to just do it at the same time at night before bed. I've got them by my bed, and that's the only time I'll remember to take them unless you fucking tell me why I'm doing it. And that's I'm taking this into 2026 even harder with my team now that I'm talking about this. I love it.
It's why studies do placebo. Like you can do a study where you give everybody in the study a placebo, but tell them it's supposed to do something, and something will happen. Like this is really well documented. We know that this is a thing. Your belief in something has power as well towards the thing. It's not the only component, but it's a massive amplifier. So, like, of course, that's the intention part of it. Of course, you should understand. Now, do you need the detailed science, whatever, all the time? No, but like a general understanding of why and what we're doing behind it, absolutely. I think going back to something when you asked the question, Bridget, too, that came up, spinning off of Carol, what you were saying too, and all of this is, have you asked any of your clients this question? Like the flip of this is not just saying what you're doing, but if I'm in my first month of practicing at your yoga studio, did you find like why am I practicing? Why am I here? Versus the like, oh, well, Josh just came in. He only came in because it was a good deal. And that's why he's here. Really? Is that true? Like, you think that if I had no desire for anything to improve in my life, I would just decide, yep, gonna take time away from my family and kids and schedule and whatever else to make it to your yoga studio 6 times because it was $30? Fuck off. No way. No, no one's doing that. It doesn't matter. You could be free. It doesn't matter. You can't make me go if I don't have some desire for something. But if you don't know what that is, then the whole conversation's off. You can't tell me the information. In your case, with this story about the acupuncturist, it's like, I want to understand what's happening in my body and how this is affecting it and why these details, so that then I can do it the best that I can to get the best result. If the practitioner just asked you, like, okay, what are we trying to do here? Why is this? And then everything else filtered back through that, I think that's the difference between super evangelism over a product and brand and one that you're like pretty indifferent about. So, practical application during your moment right now, if you've got an influx of people, try to like just have the conversation about what they want, not what, like, tell them what you do, of course, in your product, but talk about that and then just tell them they're in the right place. There's more to it in the details of the conversation, obviously. But like, I really think it's kind of that simple, but pretty high powered, actually. Well, I guess that's it then.
And part of it is because I can't go around that without raising the perennial challenge of any business owner, which is your human resources,
Mm,
right? Because people
yeah.
will people. My new favorite expression from Josh, asterisk is another one. People will people. And getting your team to do what they're supposed to do and understand the why. And I had at the end of last year, I had a really tough conversation with a client and her manager. They've done everything the manager has done. They've opted everything. And I said, you guys, I just got to call it straight out. The problem is your teachers, the product. Because if someone's not coming back and they're like, oh, well, because they have a very specific offer and it's basically 2 classes for the price of one. Right. And the manager was saying, I was noticing the number of people that don't come back after for that second class. And oh, well, people like they live across town, they do this. And this is in LA. So granted, yes, you have to drive. I said, well, I have to push back on that because obviously they were compelled to come in. They bought the offer. They came in, they took the session, and then they decided not to come back. That is a product problem.
Right. You got there in the first place.
I got there. So don't you, I said, I understand what you just said, but I said, that's a lame ass excuse. Because if they were really got something out of that session, they would have, because they already got here once.
Mm.
I'm going to go back a second time. And it was a real like, and I said, and I even said to the owner, I said, when was the last time you took a set? She said, I haven't been in a long time.
Right. You don't even know what's happening.
I don't even know
Terry,
she admitted that. She said, I don't even know what's happening. So it was like a real pivotal moment for both of them. And it was like, okay, now we know what we need to do. And it has to Carol all the way. What you said at the top here was product. If they had let their product
yeah.
and let the monkeys run the zoo.
I would just add a couple things, Terry, that one, it's like, we've been saying this for years now. It's like, whatever, just broken record. get my ass off my couch. I find you online. I book the thing. I drive across town. I find a parking spot. I make it on time for a scheduled session that you scheduled. Tell me I just was like, I thought I'd try it out. Like, I'm not going to come in and be like, here's my credit card, sign me up for a year either. You're going to have to work for it. But just showing up, I'm already a yes. I've already made a decision. I've already told you, you just don't have the details yet. I want something. I want some transformation. I've already said that. So from that perspective, if then I come in, and especially if I buy an offer, same thing at a studio, or there's a Pilates place I was talking with that, an intro at a Pilates place often is quite comparatively expensive. Like you're putting down $100, $200 right away sometimes. And so, okay, one session is whatever, 30. I spent $90 for an intro, and then I didn't come back and practice at all. I took no more classes. And also I went through like a 30-minute private get to know the thing and then did the class. After all of that, getting there and all of that, I would rather lose the money than show back up. You got to look real hard at what's happened at that point because it just is so incongruent. And yes, people get distracted. This happens, whatever. Maybe it's just not for them, but that's a small percentage. We always say like 30% of people max can get into that category. Anything past that, it doesn't make sense anymore. And so it's a hard thing to own. The second piece I would just add, though, really quick is what Terry's not saying is this isn't, because I think that especially in the yoga world, but a lot of service-based businesses that we work with, that like this is a really passion, heart-centered, life-changing, change the world, help people entrepreneur who runs it, ourselves included. That's why we all opened the businesses that we did. We misinterpret some of this stuff, this business stuff, where it's like you got to look at your product sucks as a commentary on the quality of the human being who's teaching the class. And that's not what's being said. Where it's like someone can be an excellent human being and really give a shit and actually be a good person under your employee and still just not be delivering on the product side. So when we're looking at the product, like, yeah, it's going to be through the human beings delivering the system. That's your responsibility to bring them up to snuff and give them a system to exist within. But it doesn't mean that they as a human suck. And I think that like separating those things as an owner is fundamentally necessary, because until you do, you are scared to go there, basically. You're scared to go and take Bridget's class and be like, hey, dude, like, I think you're great. Here's some stuff you did awesome. Here's 2 things where I can see right away we could make this so much more powerful. Like you've got to be able to do, and you've got to be able to do it that direct. If you can't, then yeah, it's just going to be hard to optimize. See, Terry?
I'll leave one final thought before I go to that point exactly. I have to say something.
Yeah.
This just happened this week. Exactly what you're saying, product. One of my clients took her teacher's class, a fairly youngish, newer teacher, gave her positive, glowing results, and one curiosity. She calls it curiosity. I'm curious about this. The teacher flipped out and like, you didn't tell me you were going to give me, you need to tell me if you're going to give me feedback before class. I thought this was very unfair. It felt, and it's like, and what reality is that normal, right? So I'll let you guys could ponder that, talk about that thought, but it's like, that literally is one of the owner's job, is the quality of the product. And early before I put, that was an Apple I put up when you said about quality of product. It's Apple, Steve Jobs, Apple, he did that brilliantly. Is like quality of product. He was on it. He didn't accept anything less than. And it's no different in any other business. Why should we accept less than? So I leave that because I got to bounce. Bye, guys. Happy New Year, everybody.